their place of origin, as it would be to start from, and discuss what that is, what it looks like, what it smells like, what the experience is, how you get there, and walk us all into, walk everybody through it without getting into generalities of, well, I go to, I'm in this place and the stuff and some things and I feel better. Gotta get some specific stuff.
Since you weren't here last week, you have already done a great job of remembering that place. That sliding through the red light, that's it. That place. It doesn't have to be the beginning. It could be anywhere. But it just has to be a place in which you can describe it in a way that we feel like we're there. So that you know you're there, and then remember the blessings from that. Not remember the curses, because the curses aren't going to bring you where you need to be. You may have thought it was a curse, but it turned out to be a blessing. Oh, that was funny. I even said, maybe we should take your car, Eric. He goes, no, let's take the truck.
Yeah, an Accord would have been
Another one
dramatic.
for Bennett would be, remember when I drove Bennett the next day.
Oh, the next day.
This court case, and I got my breathalyzer in my car. Bennett's got like no socks on, or different color socks, different shirt in there. Then like one of the partners is sperm's like, hey, what's up, Bennett? And they're all, he's like hiding, getting some coffee. It's crazy, man. I remember the ride back. That was a tense ride. Everything going through.
Yeah.
Then I was trying to encourage him, but he's probably like, I wish this dude would just shut up.
No, I was just in a dark place, man.
Oh, I know, I've been there.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That was great. See, you got through it.
Yeah, I'd have done though. I mean, he's still working there, so.
No, actually, it's not.
I left on good terms.
Yes, he did.
Oh man, what happened?
I
Got a new gig now?
got a new gig, yeah.
He's big time now.
And I remember rolling down, getting dragged over here, being 3 sheets to the wind, so getting kicked out of my house, knowing I don't have a car, I don't have money, I don't have clothes, and I got to be in court at 9 a.m. in Fort Myers the next morning.
And I said, listen, we'll take it. We're going to get you through this. And those are details.
Yeah.
Those are some pretty good details for sure. But we got through it.
Yeah, it was a dark place.
You hear that, Rob? Man had to be in court the next day, Fort Myers.
Not as a defendant either.
I was representing somebody.
That makes you think sometimes about the people that have represented you in the past. Like,
Yes.
Done it?
yeah. That might explain why the guy that took my case back in the day did such a crappy job.
Yeah, man.
I think he won.
I think we did
Oh,
win that
yeah.
case.
Yeah.
He's a sharp cookie, so
Yeah.
he's probably better than most of them when he's drunk.
Sad time.
But that's it. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
That's
You
the
know,
thing.
really going to that place, but then that's where you come from. That's when it started. And then being able to see the blessing in it and come back towards your current position. That's exactly what we're shooting for. So who wants to go first?
Everybody's so excited. Oh, Alejandro.
You have a question? Yes, sir.
What are we doing again?
Um,
Can I go to the bathroom?
So, what I've been focusing on when I'm doing, the morning meditation priming and what's always stuck through as a point of entry, a place where it brings me right back is, my first time sitting at the table with you, and Violetta there. I'm pouring out, all my, humiliation, baggage, burnt bridges, defeatedness to you, and just kind of being at that place of straight up, having no other, no other options really in my mind. I mean, I know we had talked about how I thought I was going to go somewhere else, but truthfully just being broken at that point in time, and then you asked me, are you willing to do whatever it takes? And, I said yes, and asking me about how I felt about God, and saying at this point, I'm open to anything. And I kind of envisioned that moment, and kind of an out-of-body experience, but watching it, in my meditation, it just brings me back, and there's just so many moments, after that, but that's the one that just immediately just sitting with you at this table, because that was the beginning, basically.
So I was there, so of course I can remember it. But how do y'all feel about it?
Eh,
That was lame.
wasn't.
They got a vague. Like, I want to hear, like, what does it feel like? What does it feel like? What do you remember about it?
Hey, let me refresh your memory of that time real quick, okay? Yes, you did. You poured it out. Very emotional. Really no direction. But you still chose, right at the very end you said, I think I'm actually going to go over to the East Coast and sit with my dad's friend and surf for a couple weeks and blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, I couldn't even believe it. And you walked away from here with that. That was the case. And I think I can't remember what I said to you, to be honest with you. I think I was in complete shock. And I think I said maybe 24 hours, let me know what you want to do.
Yeah, truthfully, I don't remember that part. I mean, I remember, us talking about it, and I remember having that in the back of my mind at the time, but I don't remember. I remember sitting at the table and going through my emotions and what I've been going through, and you being in like acceptance, not judging, just being at a place where you're like, I know where you're at, and if you do everything that I say, you'll be able to see the other side of it, and just it's just a moment. I mean, I think about another moment, partially too, is when we were at Christ Fellowship, and I know it's pretty cliche when you accept Jesus, as your Lord and Savior, but I had never went to that level of submission, and I remember for more than it just being an acceptance of Jesus, but it was the acceptance of this new life, this new way of living, and I remember I hugged you, you had we had walked over by the kind of the side area, and you got, Jake and you and a couple other people, Richie, and were standing there, and, I was kind of like, you did it, guys, and you just gave me this hug, like, you were like, yes, man, I'm so excited for you right now, and that feeling of, like, this is just a feeling of, like, complete bliss that this is a new way that or the new outlook that I have on life, is I have a chance to make it kind of thing. I go back to that sometimes too. That was a huge moment for me.
That one had a lot more detail.
Yeah. To be honest, like
More
the
emotion.
first moment,
Yeah.
it's a bit blurry on like the full conversation, but I can just go there of us sitting at the table. It's just like an immediate environment that I can go to, and just that sitting down with another man and like pouring out like I'm humiliated. That's the word that goes to, you know, when I think about that moment, just complete embarrassment that I'm at this place in life. You know, tears rolling down your eyes, just like having my friends sit at the other side of the table and not really get the full gist of where I'm at. You know, this is the first time it's really like coming out of me vomiting with another man who I don't really know, but have a feeling he's got good intentions, you know, that kind of thing. So,
See, that had a little bit more detail to it.
Had a lot more detail and emotion. The first one, there wasn't as much hand movement. I don't want your face to tell. No, I mean, the other one does something to you. You can see it when you're talking about it. You guys see it? The difference in when he's talking about the one? You know, if I was gauging like which one gets you excited and which one doesn't, obviously the second one has much more of an emotional tie to you, or you have an emotional tie to it than the first one. Not that there's anything wrong with the first thing you're talking about, but you know,
yeah, like I said, that's just like the first moment just is an aspect of where I came from. It's kind of what I immediately.
that's one that first moment, like you
Yeah.
said, you think you can snap your fingers.
Yeah,
It's
it's
something like
just
that.
an immediate, and I can see it, and I can be there.
Okay, you need to be able to describe that with that emotion to us and where you were at, which you did the second time.
Yeah.
You know, and then the, I think you said it in the first one, but not the second one, but just that place of being at what you considered to be the worst, most humiliating time of your life and sitting across the table from a guy who completely accepted you for who you were and what that felt like and how that changed you and how that gave you hope, and really get into that part of it. And that'll help you. I think that's good. It's kind of hard to sit back like this and describe it. Because if it's something that truly moves you, it's got to physically move you. Hey man, ask me how I'm doing. Ask me how I'm doing.
How you doing?
Man, I'm so glad you asked, dude. I'm doing so good. My name is Jason Bossler. I've accepted my position. I understand the responsibilities involved in it. I know where I came from. And because I was made in the image of my Maker, I surrender to infinite possibilities. I moved. Even joking around, I'm still 100% serious about all of it. And it moved him. See what I mean? So in this process, even though this is for you, it's got to move you. And it should, if you're saying it audibly, move the other people around you. Just food for thought.
So for me, a spot I vividly can remember was when it was part of the time when I was writing my amends down, and I I was really persistent with Jason in wanting to sit down with him and get this done. And I remember going to his house, getting on a boat, and sitting there with like my amends that I had wrote, with like everything I had at that time, and saying sorry for all what I've done to my parents and stuff. And for me at that time, I really felt that, and it was really wanting to get that across to Jason. And then it's like a brick to the face that Jason said it's not what it was about. It was about me being thankful for everything that they've done for me and stuck by my side, and thanking them for, dishing out all this money for me to get their son help. And it was It was like that for like 2 hours, going down the list with my mom, and just, it was like continuous bricks to my face, like just me going even to my mom, saying I'm sorry for, even like calling her all these bad things of, not being there, of, using them for what they had so I could get high at that time. And it took me back that, it's the thankful that they're stuck by my side, even though I treated them like crap. For me, that is something I am grateful for, being able to see it in that perspective and not whine and cry and saying sorry for everything that I've done.
And so what did you learn in that moment?
Sorry's not good enough. You say it a million times, it doesn't mean. I've been doing it my whole life, saying sorry.
So would you say that for the first time in your life, in recovery or whatever, you saw things for what they were and accepted them?
Yes.
And that's why it was moved that place for you?
Yes. Because before that moment, I was focusing on me and what really feeling sorry for myself. So yes, I mean, that is a moment that I will never forget, because it changed me. It changed the perspective on how I see my parents today. Helps me see that everything they've done and everything that they've taught me through that process, they just wanted the best for me. And I gave them the finger during that process. So that is also a blessing, to be able to sit on a boat for how many hours, letting you speak into my life about my parents that I couldn't see.
So, comments?
I'd say there's quite a bit of emotion in that. When you're thinking about because I think there's, to me, what I heard was kind of two parts of that. There's the part of him coming to acceptance of what he's done, right, and what's transpired, and then there's this other piece of the realization of what's actually going on right now with you in that moment.
Right.
Now, so there's kind of a duality of emotions, I would think, that are there.
Okay.
What are some of the emotions that you remember vividly feeling at that point in time? You know, take the first part where you got your list and you're going through it and having that conversation. How do you feel?
Honestly, at that moment, I felt like shit.
Okay, so there's feel like shit. In what capacity?
Based on everything that I had done to them in my past, like stealing pawning all their stuff. Because I mean, for me, it wasn't just the aspect of when I was writing it, I vividly kept having like just instance like what I'm talking about when I was writing. I'm not talking about that. I'm getting off track.
So,
I'm sorry. Would you say the first part is you felt humiliated?
Yes.
Okay. The second piece, transitioning into once the conversation broke through with Jason, and you're feeling it now, there is a feeling of what? Because it changed, right?
Yeah.
It went from I'm totally humiliated by the realization of what I've done, right, and to my parents in this case. And then Jason and you had this conversation, and as y'all had that conversation, what did that change to?
I guess I could say being more happy
Okay.
with myself, seeing that everything that they've done was just to help me and what was done with them before.
Okay. So it made you feel happy. What would be another word that it makes you feel? When you think about all the people that have prayed for you, all the people that have tried to help you, all the things, what does it do to you? Your parents being a
Makes
key
me
part of all the
feel,
sacrifices.
makes me feel like that I'm lucky to have them as my parents.
Would you use the word humbled?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm leading you a little bit. So the moment that you're talking about is when your creator, through another person or an event or whatever else, takes you from the moment of your realization of the humility of the magnitude of what's taking place in your life and changes that, the humiliation of it, into the humility needed to fuel your recovery or your restoration.
and the gratitude
That comes with that.
of the opportunity.
Yep.
I mean, that's not, for me, that's cool. That just makes me want to keep revisiting that.
Yeah.
That's
It's a
fine.
good moment for you. I mean, it's very vivid, you can tell. And I think it's just a key. I mean, I'm just listening to you too and kind of making note of what are the key indicators there for discovering that moment for each one of us. I'm listening to you and I listen to some of the same words that he said. Same thing, there was a moment of humiliation and a moment of humility that was followed by a moment of gratitude. And if I'm not experiencing those things in this moment that I'm setting up, then I'm not in the right spot, right? You know, my moment, you guys heard me last week, my moment was in jail. Wow, well, that was the first moment for me. Is it was a moment of utter humiliation, you know, the worst feelings and most awful place I'd ever been in. And in a moment, it changed to an ultimate moment of humility and gratitude because of the relief I just received and what took place. I mean, your conversation was with him. My conversation was with another guy and prayer or whatever you want to talk about. But it's still the components are the same, you know. And so that's why when you find that place, it's got to contain that. I guess it's good. It's got to have some of those elements to it. So it's good. It's got to be powerful. I used to tell guys, like, one of the ways I identified my moment a long time ago is when I started to tell my testimony. And to this day, it always before I get up to tell my story, I'm always concerned about one thing. And I said, the day that I tell my story, and I'm talking about that moment, and I don't get emotional or feel strongly, is a scary day for me. That means there's a major problem. Because if I really still am attached to there, like I should be, then that moment should rock me to the very core of who I am every time I discuss it, think about it, or go there. Because that's what I was at that moment, was rocked to the very core of who I am. So if it doesn't do that to you, because you got to think about it, when we need to go here, when we need to purposely take ourselves this place, it's like we're purposely looking for an uppercut or forearm shiver or something, a punch to the face to rattle us enough to get us back to where we need to be mentally, spiritually, and physically. And that's the moment that's the only moment in our lives that's been big enough to, and I used to tell people, I said, it was the moment in my life that God reached down and personally slapped the shit out of me. Hard enough that it knocked me to the ground and knocked me clear enough to give me a moment to make a different decision than I'd made in the past. And that was my moment, you know. And when I think about that, I'm really grateful because I'm like, it had taken 33 years for something to hit me hard enough just to give me a second for me to say, I don't want to do that anymore, and I don't want to get hit like that again. I don't want to get hit like that again, you know. So, good job, man. I thought that was good.
Thank you.
All right, I gotta go, but I feel like I'm overthinking this here.
You probably are.
Yeah. I've got my moment. I felt like I was saying I got a whole bunch of them, but I got my moment. It might not have the immediate gratitude in the moment itself, but so much stemmed from it. But it is where it began for me. So I got to go to the beginning of it. I remember sitting at Judith's funeral next to Aunt Mary and shaking, knowing I was screwed, like withdrawn so bad. I showed her my hand and I'm going like this. And at the same time, Angeline is giving her speech. That's how jacked up I was in the head. I was mad at, like I was so self-centered at the time. It's like I was mad at something that I couldn't be up there to say something. And the heart was not in it. I wanted to be, I don't know, I wanted to be a part of it for some stupid selfish reason. Then I had the seizure outside. I don't really remember. And then I remember waking up in the hospital, and that's when that's when the kick me in the face moment was. I just remember waking up and being told what was going on. And that was the moment where I was like, that's it, I'm done. Whatever's keeping me going, pull that plug or whatever, I've had enough. And then there was a few days in the hospital. So that was the realization of who I really, the weight of the world was on me in that moment. And what really clicks for me is people were coming to see me and coming to help me, and I hated them. I hated the fact that they were being nice to me. I wanted everybody to hate me, and there was Mark's family, my family, random nurses who I've met since then, coming to speak nice to me, and I wanted why won't you hate me? Was my mentality. Why won't you be mean to me? Because I was I hated myself. So that was all like a week or however long I was there, 4 or 5 days, however long that was, that whole week experience. And then leaving the hospital pissed me off more than anything. Because first of all, they wheeled me out in a wheelchair, and that whole thing, I didn't like that I had to sit in a chair and they had to wheel me out. And I remember sitting in the wheelchair in front of the car, and my Aunt Mary is literally on her knees crying, begging that I go get some type of recovery. And that was, I remember at that moment, I knew I wasn't going to go get help, but I also knew I was going to drink again. I knew I couldn't not drink again. I knew I wasn't going to go get help. That was the moment where the whole weight of the world was on me. It's not where sobriety began, because I still had another 1.5 years of crazy to go. But that was the first time the realization of the reality of where I was in life. Because before that, I just kind of always just, whatever, this will happen, the drinking will chill out. But Aunt Mary on her knees crying, like sobbing extremely, and me just, I'll be okay, saying those words, knowing full well that as soon as I had enough physical power and money, the first thing I was going to do was get a drink. That's the forced, I call it the forced position, the first position where reality hit me. I didn't come to any revelation on my own. It smacked me directly in the face. That's where my adventure began. There was a lot more crazy after that before I actually made it here. But that was the first wake up I had ever had. And I could talk about, just from that little period of time, things that I'm grateful for, blessings that stemmed from that very 4 or 5 day period. I don't really remember a blessing in the moment, except that's where it began for me, the wake up call.
When did you have so you went back out, and I'm trying to remember all your story. It's been a minute since I've heard it. So you went, that was your first slap in the face, kind of like you're saying, whoa.
I knew, at that moment, I knew it was a problem, and I also knew I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I knew I was going to go back.
When was the first time you ever fully accepted the reality or change that needed to take place? Like when you came here, or was it? Like what caused you to get, when you got clean, what caused you to get clean or sober or stop? Like the last day you used, what made you not use again the next day?
If I'm being real, I was drunk all day long. Doug came over, did the normal thing. I would hide in the house with the lights off, and he would knock on the window or whatever. And they were all in cahoots. And Doug picked me up and brought me over to his house. And I just remember standing outside with this kid Brendan, smoking so out of my mind at the time, smoking a cigarette. He's trying to talk to me, and no words are coming out of my mouth. That was the last time I was drunk.
I've got a place based on your story. I don't know that you've shared it with these guys authentically. But if you would allow yourself to go to this place, I think it would be based on what I remember, it is the first time that you knew that you were jacked up. Forget all this other stuff. It was the first time you accepted it. And it's what caused you to move back down.
Mm-hmm.
And then your mom had to drive up or didn't fly up or whatever because you're so drunk you couldn't drive
I got
home.
that on you.
There was a reason why that all took place.
I'll share that.
That to me is it for you. I could be wrong, but it's been so long since you even told it to me that I still remember it vividly because of the way in which you shared it to me.
Up until what I was just talking about, the hospital, and up getting here, a whole bunch of crap happened. That was in Wisconsin. Moved up there. That was part of it, the move. I'll move and I'll get sober. And I'm living with my cousins, who are great to me. Same concept. Why are these people nice to me? Came to Jesus with them and all that. Anyways, going to CR meetings there, they found it for me. Came home one night from that. I did my typical hide the bottle in the sock thing and blackout. Don't remember any of it. I just remember waking up to all this commotion downstairs. The 3 kids slept in the living room. I slept in the loft, so they would be sleeping here, and that'd be a railing with posts. And I don't remember any of it. I remember waking up to all kinds of lights being turned on and screaming. And what had happened was I was so blackout drunk, I thought I went to the bathroom, and all I did was walk to the railing and piss over the railing onto the children that were there. And that's what I woke up to, was that commotion. And that was like, boom. And that was I have to leave this place because I'm destroying these people. And then I left there, and I made up some excuse on why I was leaving, something with work or whatever, and I left, and I made it half a day to Indiana. I was drunk the whole time driving in the snow. Made it to the hotel in Indiana, and that was it. Once I parked the car at the hotel, the sleaze bag, Super 8 or whatever it was, that was it. I couldn't. I thought I had finally gotten, I got free. I'm free in this little room here. And I went to Pizza Hut and the liquor store. And that was it. Until Sunday came where I didn't buy alcohol. And then I was drunk in that hotel room for 4 days straight. Until my mommy flew up and got me and drove the car home.
And then you came here? Or
I had it was a few months after that before I came here.
Before we got into cahoots.
Yeah.
and you were still drinking then before you get here?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I, for me, when you talk about that, you talk about you went to that Christian concert, and that was the first time that you had ever authentically surrendered yourself to this new life.
Yeah, we were at the concert.
And how these people loved you so much, and they were giving you this opportunity and allowing you to be around their kids and this, that, and the other, and how humiliated you were. That you literally pissed on your kids, and they still loved you.
Oh, yeah. I stayed there probably another month after doing
And you
it.
just could not deal with the fact of that. That for me was. You hear that? The same type of
I
thing?
hear that in that story. And I saw him get a little more emotional when he's talking about it.
Well,
it means something different to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to find the emotion and get out of the facts. And go back there and remember who you were. And that these people had accepted you and were trying to help you. And they were this good family, and they were doing the right things, and they were introducing you to these new things. And you finally surrendered to something greater than yourself. And you still, after that, pissed on their kids. And how that made you feel. And that was the humility of it all. In that you were so angry at yourself, here you had surrendered yourself finally to this power greater than yourself, and you still couldn't do things right in the perfect environment.
So when was your moment of like revelation or whatever you're gonna call it, where it was like the lights came on and you stopped?
Drinking?
Well, that. What would you call your first moment of restoration or recovery? Where was that? What was it? When was it? Like if there was the first second you're in recovery, when was that second?
Talking to Paul, talking to you the next day. Both of them said the same thing. I was trying not to come here as much as I could. The night before, I'd only been 3 days sober. Go to my cousin Paul's. He gives me the whole sales pitch. And he said, in his own words, me and Jason didn't live near each other and party however many years ago. For any of that, that all happened for you right now. Then next day, came here and wasn't long into the day being here, only a few hours of quick conversation, and you said the same thing in your own words. Me and your cousin Paul were not put near each other for partying, it was for you. Something happened there. Something clicked there. That there was something going on that had really, I can't figure out. Because they both said it in their own ways. They didn't say verbatim the same thing, but they both said, what I heard was, you think that we were buddies back in the day. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with you in this current moment.
Made you feel humble and special in that moment. The universe aligned all of that specially for you.
Yeah. That was the first click of, okay, something's going on that I am not in any capacity to be in control or aware of.
So do you see your path into here? And like I said, to me, it's that humiliation to humility transfer. It might take place for some people. They can correspond to an event that look like it was today, and then minutes later. For some people, it's a process like yours was, a process of saying there was this event, this event, this event, this event that led me to this place where that moment of humility took place for me. And that was the moment where I realized something's going on here. Like, and it was my moment where I realized, like, for the first time, I feel special, or I feel released, or I feel different than I had up until that moment. And that's my moment, and that's when you know you've reached that place. And like I said, it looks different for everybody, but that's great.
I mean, ultimately, you could say the humility or the humiliation was going over to Paulie's to sit at the table with his family, the cousin that you always looked up to, always wanted to make happy, always wanted to impress, tried to be a firefighter, tried to do whatever it was to be a part of what Paulie was going on, and now you got to go over there and sit at the table with him and your mom or whatever, and talk about how jacked up your life is. That's the humility. That's the humiliation.
Yeah. This is rock bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next day is the correlation between what was said, because it didn't make sense until I said it, and that's when it switched to humbleness. And then from that point, you will find your gratitude. But yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
You remember the words, you find your gratitude. Like I said, I can remember the words the guy said to me, and they weren't nice. You know, I wanted so badly for this guy to look at me and say, everything's going to be fine, dude. You're going to be all right. Everything's going to go good. And he said, you know, you need to get right with God, or your life's going to come to a bitter end real quick. And that was what I needed to hear in that moment. And people had said that to me my whole life. But for that moment with that guy in jail, I didn't know him. I can tell you where I was, what it smelled like, where he was sitting, and what took place. And I can tell you exactly what I did immediately after that. You know, that was it. And there was clarity on that. I don't have to go to, I can hang out in that area and things get real crystal clear when I'm in that place. Because I didn't have anything at that point in time. And I realized it and I was okay with it. I was actually happy, you know, at that point in time. So those are the things, again, you can, and the only reason I kept asking you questions is all of us have a bunch of moments where we got slapped around, but we didn't respond. And there was a reason that over here you responded and over here you didn't. And for you to get into your place, the ultimate goal here of doing this exercise is to get you back into a good place, right? So you want to make sure that that's there for you to get into. If I camp out over here, and today you're in a good spot, right? 5 years from now, 6 years from now, a year from now, whatever it is, when you're somewhere else in life, you got kids and a wife and all this kind of stuff's going on. If you venture off and you're down the path and you camp out in some area that doesn't have that ability, all that turns into is you start getting into self-pity, humiliation, beating yourself up, and you don't ever get into that place called, okay, now I'm in a place of gratitude so I can go through and start collecting my undeniables to get to my current moment, right? Now I'm camped out over here in Sicktown, USA. You know, I'm still pissing on kids.
Which is what the fourth step does to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It forces them, it makes them feel like a big old giant piece of dookie, steamy dookie.
Yeah.
Humble pie dookie. And that's not the purpose. It's the purpose of that fourth step is to identify where you came from, what got you up to that moment that went humiliation, humbleness, gratefulness. All within a short period of time. Because remember, today is it. This is it. If you don't make it another step from this moment, you will have achieved greatness. And that's incredible. Because what you should have achieved was dookie pie. Steamy. All of us. They said, yeah, see, I knew it.
You ordered that hot.
I knew it. I always knew it. Yep, I knew it. That's how I was going to end up. But see, you didn't. You didn't end up that way. You're today. This is where you're at. And so that's the whole purpose of this. That's it.
I think for mine,